Today that number is zero, not reduced, not refinanced into a more manageable form, not transferred somewhere easier to ignore. Zero, paid off, done. And the reason this video exists is not to brag about a financial milestone or to perform the kind of debt-free scream that has become a genre of its own on social media. The reason this video exists is because the journey from that number to zero taught things about money, about behavior, about motivation and systems, and the psychology of financial change that no book, no course, and no financial influencer had been able to teach before the actual lived experience of doing it made them real. If you are watching this with your own number in your head, whatever it is, 10,000, 25,000, 60,000, this video is for you. Not because your situation is identical. It is not. But because the principles that made this possible, the specific strategies, the sequencing, the mindset shifts, and the moments where it almost fell apart and what it took to push through those things transfer. They work across different debt amounts, different incomes, different life situations. The specifics of this story are mine. The framework is yours to take. Welcome to Klux One Finance. Let me start by being completely honest about how $42,000 of debt actually happened. Because one of the most damaging myths in the personal finance space is that large amounts of debt are always the result of irresponsibility, poor character, or catastrophic financial decisions. Sometimes that is true. In this case, it was not. And I suspect for many people watching this, it was not true for you either. The debt broke down like this. $14,000 in student loans from a 2-year program that was supposed to open professional doors, and largely did, just not as quickly or as lucratively as the enrollment counselor's optimistic projections had suggested. $11,000 on 2 credit cards that accumulated over about 3 years of a period where income was inconsistent, a couple of genuine financial emergencies hit back to back, and the gap between what was coming in and what life actually cost got covered with plastic because there was no other option in the moment. $9,000 on a car loan for a reliable vehicle that was not a luxury purchase, but was a necessity for getting to and from work in a city without adequate public transit. And $8,300 in a personal loan taken out to cover a medical situation that insurance only partially handled, because the deductible was higher than the emergency fund that did not yet exist. None of these debts represent a shopping addiction or a lifestyle that exceeded the means. They represent the financial profile of an enormous number of ordinary working adults navigating a system where emergencies happen, where education costs money, where transportation is necessary, and where the gap between income and expenses can sometimes require bridge financing that compounds into a number that eventually feels impossible. The moment everything changed was not a dramatic rock bottom. It was not a crisis. It was something quieter and in many ways more unsettling. It was the moment of sitting down and actually calculating, for the first time with real numbers in front of me rather than a vague, uncomfortable awareness, exactly how much the minimum payment strategy was going to cost over the full payoff timeline if nothing changed. The calculation took about 20 minutes and produced a result that was genuinely shocking. If I continued paying minimums on all 4 accounts, the total interest paid over the life of those debts would be approximately $18,000. On top of the $42,000 in principal, $60,000 total, paid back for $42,000 borrowed, and the timeline to zero under the minimum payment strategy was 11 years. 11 years of minimum payments, 11 years of interest compounding, 11 years of this number sitting in the background of every financial decision, every life goal, every moment of potential financial progress, getting partially redirected to service debt that was barely shrinking. That calculation was the moment. Not because of the drama of it, but because it converted the debt from something vague and overwhelming into something concrete and solvable. 11 years and $60,000 was the cost of doing nothing differently. What would it cost to do something differently? That question changed everything. Building the payoff plan started with 3 decisions that preceded any specific financial strategy. The first decision was to treat the debt as the single highest priority financial objective, above everything except the most basic financial safety net. Not vacation savings, not new furniture, not keeping up with any standard of living that was not absolutely necessary. The debt first, everything else after. This decision sounds obvious, but it is harder to actually commit to than most people realize before they try it, because it means saying no to things that feel reasonable and justified in the moment for the sake of a goal that feels very far away. The second decision was to build a minimal emergency fund before accelerating debt payoff. Not a full 3 to 6 month emergency fund. A $1,000 starter emergency fund that would handle the most common financial emergencies without requiring a return to credit card debt in the middle of the payoff process. This decision is one that some debt payoff strategies would argue against. Every dollar sitting in savings instead of attacking debt is a dollar not earning the debt's interest rate. That is mathematically true. But the behavioral reality is that debt payoff plans that have no emergency buffer are extremely fragile. A single car repair or medical bill that has no cash coverage forces a choice between missing a debt payment or putting the emergency back on a credit card. Either outcome damages the plan. The $1,000 buffer absorbs the most common shocks without derailing the strategy, and the psychological security of knowing it exists makes it easier to be aggressive with every other available dollar. The third decision was to choose the debt avalanche method as the payoff sequence, specifically because the credit card debt at the highest interest rates was also at a manageable balance that would fall relatively quickly with focused attention. The sequencing looked like this. Credit card 1 at 23% APR with a balance of $6,000 was target 1. Credit card 2 at 19% APR with a balance of $5,000 was target 2. The personal loan at 14% with $8,300 was target 3. The student loans at 6 and 7% with $14,000 were target 4. The car loan at 5% with $9,000 was last. The choice to put the car loan last, despite it being a larger balance than the personal loan, was deliberate. The car loan's interest rate was lower than the personal loan's rate, so the avalanche method correctly identified the personal loan as the higher priority. And the student loans, despite being the largest single balance category, carried the lowest interest rates in the entire debt portfolio, meaning every dollar spent on them was doing less work per dollar than a dollar directed at the credit cards or the personal loan. Now let us talk about the money, because strategy without funding is just a plan on paper. The monthly minimum payments across all 4 account categories added up to approximately $810 per month. The total monthly budget after housing, utilities, food, transportation, and absolute necessities came to about $3,200 on a take-home income that averaged roughly $3,800 to $4,000 per month during this period. That left a gap of roughly $600 to $800 per month between the minimums and what the budget could theoretically support in total debt payment. But getting that full $600 to $800 directed at debt required finding it first, because budgets at the level of income being managed at that time do not naturally produce hundreds of dollars of obvious surplus. Every dollar of extra debt payment had to be found, freed up, or earned. The spending audit that started this process identified approximately $240 per month in spending that could be eliminated or reduced without meaningful quality of life impact. Streaming subscriptions that had been auto-renewing for months without being used, $32 per month gone. A gym membership that had not been visited in 4 months, $45 per month gone. Dining out reduced from approximately 6 times per week to twice per week. Approximately $110 per month recovered. Grocery shopping switched from a premium supermarket to a discount alternative for non-specialty items, approximately $50 per month recovered. A car insurance policy that had not been shopped in 2 years. New quote from a competitor saved $63 per month with identical coverage. That initial audit freed up $240 per month before any income changes. Added to the natural surplus in the budget, The first month's extra debt payment was approximately $550 directed entirely at credit card one on top of the minimum. The income acceleration side of the equation was where the timeline compressed from what math alone would have suggested. 3 specific income strategies produced meaningful additional money during the 24-month period. A thorough pass through every room of the apartment, the storage unit, and the car produced an inventory of items that were not being used and that had real market value. Electronics, clothing, books, furniture. Sporting equipment accumulated from a previous phase of life. All of it went on to Facebook Marketplace, eBay, and a local consignment shop. The total generated over about 6 weeks of listing activity was approximately $2,100. Every dollar went directly to credit card one. That single effort shaved almost 4 months off the projected payoff timeline for the first target. The second income stream was freelance writing. A professional background in a field that requires clear written communication translated into a marketable freelance skill that platforms like Upwork and direct outreach to small businesses made accessible. Starting with small projects to build a portfolio and reviews, the freelance income grew from approximately $200 in month 1 to approximately $600 to $800 per month by month 6. Not life-changing income. But $400 extra per month compounded into nearly $5,000 of additional debt payment over the course of a year. And that made a very significant difference in the timeline. The third was a deliberate approach to every windfall during the 2-year period. Tax refunds, a small bonus at work in month 14, a birthday gift from family, a small amount from a class action settlement that arrived unexpectedly. Every windfall, regardless of size, went to debt. Not partly to debt and partly to something enjoyable. All of it to debt. This required a mental reframe of what a windfall represents. Most people experience a windfall as permission to spend on something deferred. During the payoff period, every windfall was reframed as an acceleration event money that was going to compress the timeline and reduce the total interest paid. The urgency is different. The anxiety is different. The options feel different. The future feels different. What used to feel like a ceiling now feels like a floor. Now let us build your version of this plan. Because the specifics of this story are not your specifics, but the framework transfers completely. Start by writing down every debt you have with its exact balance, interest rate, and minimum payment. No approximations. Exact numbers. Then calculate what the minimum payment strategy actually costs you in total interest and time. That calculation is the moment of clarity that makes the rest possible. Then identify your payoff sequence using the avalanche method if the math motivates you. The snowball if quick wins are what you need to stay engaged. Then do the spending audit and find every dollar that can be redirected from consumption to debt payoff. Then identify the income acceleration opportunity that is most accessible for your specific skill set and life situation. Then automate every minimum payment on every non-target account and set up the maximum possible extra payment on your target account. And then execute, month by month, windfall by windfall, extra shift by extra shift, invoice by invoice, for however long it takes. The debt that feels permanent is not permanent. The number that feels impossible is not impossible. 2 years from right now, your financial life can look completely different, not because of luck or a miracle or a financial product that solves the problem overnight, because of a plan executed consistently by someone who decided that the cost of the status quo was higher than the cost of the change required to escape it. That decision is yours to make. Everything else follows from it. Subscribe to Klux One Finance if you have not already. Hit the bell notification. Share this video with someone who is carrying debt and needs to know it is possible to get out. And I will see you in the next one.